What's up, guys? We are going to talk about the stigma around addiction tonight, and I am going to have Leanna Troche will be joining us tonight. There you are.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you? So happy
Hi.
to be here with you.
I'm so happy that we made this work.
I know. Finally, it's only been like months.
I know. I know. Oh, there's so much to talk about around this. We talked about the stigma of addiction, and I was like, man, there's just so many places to go.
hmm
Um, and what after we hung up earlier, the first thing I thought about was addiction, like the stigma that I had around addiction, especially admitting that I had a problem. I always thought an addict was like somebody that was homeless, eating out of a dumpster, didn't have a
Totally. Me
job.
too.
Yeah, like it was crazy. Like I had this total
100%. I
misconception.
still had my car. I wasn't under the bridge. I wasn't as bad as that guy. I wasn't drinking my drinks out of a paper bag. I still had them in
Yep.
martini glasses. you know? like, no, I still have a house. I still have a husband who I don't know if I still had him. but
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I still had all those things. So yeah, my stigma too was that like, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. And that's the thing too, is my stigma, even I knew I was an alcoholic when I was in high school, right?
Ooh.
But I wasn't as bad as my friend who was
Okay, I'm
hi.
back. Whoa. Okay.
Was that you or me? I don't know.
The last I heard was I I wasn't so bad as my friend in high school.
Yeah, because he was throwing up blood. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not that bad. But I knew
Oh
I
yeah.
had a problem when I really wanted to give blood. We were doing a blood drive at our school when I was a senior, and I really wanted to give blood. I was so excited. This is totally my jam. And we went, and I'm like, holy shit, I've been drinking all day. Like, I don't think I can give blood.
Did you try?
Well, I went and I sat in the thing, and then I just told them that I was sick.
Mm.
I just told them that I was sick. I wasn't feeling well. And they were like, oh, we'll probably just hold off. But it didn't even cross my mind that I can't drink to do these things that I really enjoy. I want to do and I'm passionate about.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I didn't realize how like drinking would get in my way. And I thought it was just a fun thing, right? Like I'm just gonna drink and have a little bit of fun. And it always ended up with like I always ended up blacking out, not remembering. Um,
Was that the way it was for you when the first time like you picked up?
the first time I drank, I remember and I'll never forget it. I think I was like 14 years old and I drank Mickey's. And I felt like a buzz and I was like, oh my God, like I love this. And the reason I loved it so much is because it changed the way that I felt. And I wasn't
hmm
like feeling comfortable in my skin and I wasn't liking who I was. And I was like, oh my God, this is where it's at.
Yeah,
And this is
totally.
fun.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I got like superhero wings. I like had my cape got put on or something. And I know, same here. I like they gave me a beer bong. I didn't know what this was, but I did this beer bong. Anyways, it didn't turn out very well. It was definitely horrible. Lots of throwing up in the vehicle and everything else and blacking out. But then the next day I wanted to do it again. It was like I didn't learn my lesson. But that's the way it was for me at the very beginning. Like I have the genetic disposition that I have one drink or, really anything for that matter. And it's just like game on for me.
Yeah. So how old were you the first time that you drank?
I was 14 when I smoked marijuana for the first time. And then
Oh,
that quickly went to 15 was when I had my first drink.
wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I was like, "Yep, this is me and alcohol. That's it. I found my mate." I'm going to conquer the world with this. It's me and alcohol. And that's what it was. It was like my best friend. I went everywhere with alcohol. And I started taking it to school every day in the morning, by senior year for sure. I was a daily drinker when I was a senior, but I was also so Stigma. So I was also a star athlete.
Mhm.
So I was not an at-risk youth. So nobody looked, nobody paid attention, nobody noticed. Everybody just was more concerned with how many goals you score, how was the game, yada, 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 athlete of the week. And I'm in the papers all the time. And that's what it was. As long as I continued to perform, nobody asked any questions. So.
That's so funny that you say that, because the same thing happened with me playing volleyball, playing basketball. It was like nobody ever asked any questions. I was still excelling in sports, and getting scholarships to college. And it was like, there was no way that you were going to convince me I had a problem.
Oh yeah,
like,
no, I was having fun,
no
man.
way.
Yeah. I was having
I
fun.
remember.
Except for I was in an abusive relationship and had to get on antidepressants, and there was some of those going on, and I was causing quite a wreck in my house. My parents, like they were just in turmoil as to what to do with me. But aside from that, that was inside the house, right? But outside the house, it was like they didn't know what to do. And I mean, my dad even called me an alcoholic at one point, Yeah, it wasn't very good, but they didn't know what to do. They really didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And outside, nobody notices because everyone just sees you doing well in sports and doing well in school. And so no one thinks to even question that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you just like fly under the radar. And I don't even think until I was out of college, because alcohol and drugs got in the way of college.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think I quit after 2 years.
Okay, so how did you quit? Like at that time, that was college. And after 2 years, you quit. You said, right?
Well, I quit college. I didn't quit drugs.
You quit college.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't quit drugs till 38.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I got sober at 38 too. Yeah, that's right. We got the same almost birthdays, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like, it got in the way, drugs and alcohol got in the way of, sports got in the way of drugs and alcohol. And so that had to go. I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to play volleyball anymore. And then I just kind of scooted on out. And it was so easy though for me to not apply myself at school as long as I was an athlete. Like nobody was questioning me.
Yeah, no. So what did you say? You just said something. It was so easy for you not to apply yourself.
Yeah, it was so easy because I was an athlete. They were always going to make sure that I could pass. And nobody was looking at the fact that we were partying all the time.
Yeah, so I just did another live, and I've been connecting with a lot of other athletes that had scholarships and talking about their mental health and addiction. And that's where I'm going to start to take this speech of Smash the Stigma and really speaking to young adults and student athletes specifically. So going into universities and just talking about it, because it is so overlooked. And and really mental health is still seen as a weakness when it comes to, or a problem, right? When it comes to getting in the way of your sports, right? I mean, you see Simone Biles just came out with her, mental health crisis, crisis, would you call it? When she came out at the Olympics. And so just talking to more young people about this and what it looks like so that they can open up. For me, I got a scholarship as well. I went to South Carolina. And I quit after my first year, but my freshman year, I quit drinking after my freshman year. So what happened my freshman year is all the seniors came and spoke to me, not all of them, but a few of them came and spoke to me. They're like, you have to really clean your act up. But what happened to me is that I got really deathly sick. And so I had spinal meningitis when I was 16. So every winter I would get so sick. And so that is what addiction is. So what happened is that I was so sick, I couldn't drink or eat anything, like not even water. So, what happens in addiction is the dopamine, right? And our neurotransmitters are firing that dopamine responses in our brain that is leading to addiction. It's making us want more, need more to satisfy the craving, right?
Right.
And so because I was so sick, I couldn't drink or eat like even water. So after like 3 weeks, the urges to drink went away. Like I didn't have any urge to drink, right? Like I was so sick, I couldn't even think about drinking, really. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so that dependency on the alcohol, it went away. So when I went back to college, I actually didn't drink anymore. I knew that if I was going to pick up drinking, it was going to be an issue. You know, so actually I stayed sober for quite a while. I mean, I'd have a beer here and there. I was still smoking weed and doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
But the drinking part, I had a little bit of abstinence for a little while through my 20s when I got married and had my kids and things.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
abstinence was never a thing for me. Like what I would do, I'd stop doing one drug to do another, or
Right.
to stop doing one drug to drink. And so I was like, see, I don't have a problem. I know you people think I have a problem, but I'm not like attached to any one substance. But the issue was I was attached to a substance, period. It didn't matter
Right.
what it
Totally.
was.
Yeah. Well, it just like recently, because, you know, I'm studying social work and I'm studying addiction counseling and I'm studying the mind and the way, you know, that chemical balance happens or imbalance happens in the brain with the dopamine and the neurotransmitters. So it's been something that I've just recently, I was able to identify why I'm like, I don't know why I was able to be abstinence, but it makes sense that I was so sick. It really stopped, you know, basically I went into a detox and then I
Hmm.
just stayed sober because I knew drinking. So then when I got married, and then fast forward and here I am like 32. We're having a blast. We've got these two beautiful kids. We're living like a dream life in Maui, right? Like dream lifestyle, everything. We're just living it up. And I'm like, I think I might be an alcoholic. He was like, what? I go, yeah, I kind of had this problem in high school. And he had no idea. And so you know how the disease progresses?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the
Like, were you
progression,
drinking at that time when you had that revelation to him?
yeah, yeah. Because
Okay.
it was so out of control.
Okay. But he didn't see
Yeah,
it.
so through my 20s, when I would drink, it was like I was getting kicked out of the dive bars. It was
Yeah.
like going to Vegas, pulling the go-go dancers off the podium, and I'm like jumping up there. Like it was so nuts. Like, no, you're not a stripper. I'm the one up on the stage. Like, you know, I mean, like, I was getting kicked out all over the place. I don't know how you get kicked out of Vegas bars, but I was clubs, but I was doing it. And it was just bad. And he was
Yeah.
just like, what is up? I was like, I think I have a problem. Yeah, but it took me like it took me 6 more years, but I got sober at 38. But then let's talk about that, the stigma. Why did it take you so long to get sober?
Mm.
Yeah, what was
Why?
happening there?
For me, what happened for me was I was not going to admit I had a problem because I had this misconception of what a drug addict looked like or what an alcoholic looked like, and that definitely wasn't me. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way you were going to convince alcoholics are people that just sit around and drink all day, and that hallucinate, and they have. My grandfather was an alcoholic, and so that's what I would compare it to. Like he
Okay.
drank so much that he would hallucinate and have all of these like crazy things happen, and I was like, yeah, I'm not there, so I'm not an alcoholic.
Right. Yeah, totally. I know. It's the so a stigma. You know what the definition of stigma is?
What is the definition of stigma? Share with
So
us.
this is from the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So NAMI is a really nationwide website and organization you can go to. So this is like mental health, but I put substance abuse right up there too. So a
Mhm.
stigma is when someone has a negative view of another person just because of their mental illness or substance abuse problem, right?
Mm.
So any negative judgments that you have towards another person just because of their drinking, drug use, whatever it might be, right? So like if you see somebody on the street who maybe has raggedy clothes and their hair is all a mess, maybe they have dirt in their fingernails and they're a little dirty, maybe they smell of something, maybe they're mumbling to themselves, right? Like, what do you think? Like,
I
oh,
automatically am going to judge them that they're homeless.
yeah. And
Mhm.
probably have, I'm not going to give them money, probably just go and buy some drugs or alcohol with it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's that judgment that we push on people, right? We just automatically have this stigma. And the stigma, there's a long history as to why we are conditioned with it. And that goes back to like the 4th century, like way early, like early Christianity and stuff. And so that stigma, you know, it was seen as a sign of evil. It was seen as if you didn't, you know, follow Jesus Christ, then the Lord will, you know, pass down judgment upon you. And it's generally in madness. And so someone with mental illness was seen as like in low moral standing, you know, or the devil has taken them over, right? They're not worthy. They're not good enough, right? And so that judgment has carried on over the centuries as, you know, good or bad. And so when we have an addiction, I mean, we feel bad about ourselves, right? Like we know we should be doing better. I mean, for me, it was like, I can't believe where I was. I can't believe I couldn't figure it out. Every single night I would say, I don't want to do this anymore. I would even like throw the bottle of vodka. I don't want this. I don't want it. And then the next morning I would go buy then another bottle. Like,
Yep.
it's, I couldn't stop. Like and then the shame, like, what is wrong with me? I'm defective because like, why can't I stop?
Yes.
Right. And so there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Why can that person stop? You know, why can that person stop and I can't stop? You know, so then we then have our own shame, and that shame keeps us from seeking treatment.
And you know, what's funny is I remember waking up and I would wake up and go, fuck, I'm going to have to do this every day until I die. And I'm okay with that because I'd rather do that than admit that I have any kind of problem or that I might have an addiction problem. Yeah, because I saw that as a weakness, or now I'm flawed and I'm bad and all the things that come along with that.
Well, and then you dig yourself, like, okay, I'll speak from I dig myself into such a hole.
Yeah.
And I feel so alone down there. No one could possibly relate to me and this hole that I've dug, and I can't even articulate it, but here I am. I'm like, put the dirt over the top of me, like, right? I'm drowning. And it's like just sitting in total isolation, right? Because I'm like, I dug this hole, you know, like just feeling so shameful of like how I even got to this place. And quite honestly, I wasn't really sure if it was my drinking or if it was like my marital problems.
Oh.
I mean, I totally knew it was my drinking, but it was definitely, I went to treatment like I just needed to get away from my husband. I don't know. I kept going back and forth like that for a little while.
So you did go to treatment?
Yeah, I went to treatment for 60 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. I remember I detoxed on in my boyfriend's house for I think like 3 or 4 days. Like I didn't get out of bed for 3 or 4 days. That was the worst experience. I was like, I'll never do. And that, like, I remember that experience, that like that's one of the things that like keeps me so far removed from that. Is I don't want to do that.
So let's talk about that. So then, how many people do you know relapsed?
Oh my God, I know so many people that relapse.
Right? And so the shame then when they relapse, and thinking about how that was for you, right? That detox and what that was like, and it was so painful. So many times we often see when people relapse, they don't want to go through that detox again. So they literally do drugs and drug and drink until they die, because they do that rather than having to go through that detox again.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't know that there was support out there that you could actually go to like a detox facility and stuff like that. Right. But regardless, you get to go through the pain. Like there is going to be pain involved. And for me, I'm grateful that I went through it, because that is one of the lasting memories of why I'm like, you know what, that like I don't want to go back there again. Like I remember what it was like those last 4 days. I remember what it was like, and that's not a place that I want to go visit again.
Yeah, and my detox was, I didn't really have to go through any tough detox or medicated detox or anything like that. It was kind of a gradual decline, I guess, or abstinence. because I had about 8 days before I was able to get into treatment. But mine is, I was so desperate, right? I had like the gift of desperation that I don't ever want to go back to that. Like, I don't ever want to go back to being in such a place of desperation again. Like that
Hmm.
dark night of the soul. Like, I don't ever want to go back, even though I didn't have a tough detox, that pain, it was that rock bottom that I don't ever want to experience again. And
Yeah.
I've had some serious turmoil happen in my life as in sobriety, but nothing that I've experienced has ever been as bad as it was when I was drinking and using.
And it's funny, like now I can face things today, like it's I have like life shows up and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'm ready to deal with it. Whereas before I was like such a runner. And I was going to
Mm-hmm.
run away and use, do whatever I could to avoid the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And today I still find that I have some of those moments where I, even though I'm not using, like I have patterns that I will avoid still.
Oh,
And I was like, wow, these patterns have been so ingrained in me.
right. Right. I mean, that's the thing is like it doesn't go away just because you take away the substance. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that we find is that alcohol or the substance is just the symptom, right? It's just the thing we're using to cure whatever is happening inside of us to help us feel better, right? And it's just this numbing thing that we do, but it's just the symptom. And it's really, once we take the alcohol away, it's like all those behaviors are still there. Those things don't magically go away, and my behavior was so erratic and so I had zero emotional intelligence. Zero. I didn't
Oh,
know the
yeah.
difference between I'm good, I'm fine, I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling fine. Like I didn't have any other emotions in my vocabulary.
The only thing I knew was happy, sad, and pissed off. That was it.
Right?
That was it. There was nothing else. Nothing else
Uh-huh.
was available to me. And I remember, like, my sponsor would always ask me, like, how are you feeling? And I was like, what the fuck kind of question is that? Stop
I
asking me
know.
that. Like, I'm pissed off right now,
Yeah, I was
because
I
I
was
couldn't
having that
identify.
too. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
so
I just
funny.
couldn't.
Yeah. So the other thing too, though, I think about like the stigma is that the unknowing. I believe in my mission of smashing the stigma on mental health and substance abuse. It's the unknown. Like, no, we don't know. We're not educated. There's not a lot of information out there. Like, I mean, I've been talking with a man who should probably stop drinking, but he's not convinced of that quite yet. He wants to moderate, and so supporting him through, that possibly, hopefully he'll survive. But they don't know. Like, we don't know. I didn't know. I just knew I needed to stop. Like, something came over me when my family asked me what I needed, and I said I need to go to treatment. I don't know what that is. Don't know anything about it. I've never really seen AA. I don't know anything about alcoholism. I never seen it. I don't know a single person. I had one friend who handed me a big book, and I read the whole thing drinking my glass of wine.
That's fantastic.
Oh my God.
Love it.
I got to like, the 12 steps. I got to like step 4. And I'm like, well, how do you do that moral inventory? And I'm drinking my wine.
That is hilarious.
And then
Oh my God, that's so
then
good.
I'd call her and I'd be like, I really need to go to a meeting. And she's like, you can't go drunk, sweetheart. And I'm like, well, how do you go then? Like, I literally can't
Yeah.
stay sober to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
Like, by the time the
Wow.
meetings come up, I was already drinking. I didn't, anyways. Yeah. So it's like, what does it look like? There's so many different forms of sobriety these days. I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous is not the only answer for a lot of people. There's a lot of sober communities out there, a lot of people that are
Yep.
doing it. And quite honestly, I support people who maybe it doesn't have to be, I'm never going to drink again, right? It's just like, just for today, just for right now, just in
Right.
this, like, what else can you do in this minute? Can you pick up a phone? Can you go on a walk? Can you go do something else? Like, just don't pick up a drink. Don't pick up a drug.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because people ask me all the time, they're like, would you ever drink or do drugs again? And I was like, um, at this moment, I'm going to tell you no. Because I know where I go. And I'm not saying that it's good, bad, right, or wrong for anybody else. I'm just saying for me, my experience is that I go downhill really fast and I lose everything.
Yeah. And for me, I have no need for it. Like,
Yeah,
I really have absolutely no desire.
me either.
I don't have any desire to want like a glass of wine with a nice dinner, like wine tasting. Those are the things that I was like, how am I going to live life without that? But
Yeah.
man, I'm doing it. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty dang happy, and I actually don't need it. And if I think it's really poison for me, there's no need for alcohol in our world, in our lives. Like, there really isn't. And I'm completely satisfied in my life. Like, I reach a higher elevation of consciousness through my mindfulness practice and my
Hmm.
meditation practice. And so like what I was always striving for was this deep connection, right? I was always striving for like this huge spiritual something. And I get it all the time through my mindfulness and meditation practice. So I really don't need anything to alter my mind.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I'm at. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong for anybody else. It's just for me.
For
Um,
me, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's not the first thing I think of whenever, especially when like life happens and I have something come up. I used to think, oh my God, I got to go have a drink and relax
Uh-huh.
and try to solve this problem. And then I would just run from it because I was really just trying to change the way I felt. And now I'm like, wow, like that thought doesn't even come to my mind because I know that that's not the answer. In fact, that will make it worse. I'm convinced. And that's just because it's been my experience. But
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's
I run.
healthy coping skills, right? Versus unhealthy coping skills. Like, that literally was an unhealthy behavior coping skill for when there's a problem and a crisis in your happening in your life in adversity, right? Like,
Yep.
all you've done now, what do you do now? Uh, take a breather and breathe maybe a little bit, drop into your heart a little bit. Maybe you go on a walk, maybe you go work out. Like, right? You have these things
Other
happen in your
tools.
life, and now you have these other tools in your toolbox to sit there and healthy coping skills to get through life.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, my life is so fulfilling today. I have so many different things that go on rather than I remember I would have lists of things that I was going to do and then I would get distracted with like alcohol or drugs and then it was like, oh, I'd never get anything done because I would just stay effed up all day long.
I know. I know. I was like, it was getting really bad at the end because I'm a kite surfer, and we would go to the beach and do that whole thing all day with the kids and stuff. And when I then got to a point where I wasn't even going kiting anymore because I was drinking too much on the beach, like that just my heart, I just was getting I was so sad. I was so like heartbroken. I was like, who am I? Like, I didn't even identify the person that was like
Mhm.
functioning this body like again. I'm like, who am I? It just made me so hard. Like, and then I had my own shame on myself, right? Like, and then I was just like beating myself up constantly. Like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so active. I can't imagine you not active. At all. And so when you share with me like parts of your story, I'm always like so amazed because I'm like, wow, I can't imagine you not active or doing your meditation or hiking somewhere in the mountains or going skiing because you're always like on the go doing
I
something.
know, but you are too, like you are too in what you're doing. And I mean, like, I know we have these like totally different parts of our lives, and I'm grateful for that because I do feel like I've gotten to a chance at two different lives, right? Like, because I do feel like I'm on a totally different rebirthing journey I'm on now, right?
Yes, yes, and it's so good. It's so amazing that I'm just like, wow, I didn't know life could be this way because I never
Mhm.
gave it a chance.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious, what did you do then when you stopped? So you detoxed on your boyfriend's couch for for like 3 days or something. And then what did you do?
So I was bartending at the time at a strip club, and so I went back to work, and I was like, well, I can drink. I don't have to do drugs anymore. I detox from drugs.
Okay.
So I drank, I think, for another 3 months, and then I remember thinking, you know, this program really sucks. Like nothing good is coming into my life, and they keep
What
telling you that all
program?
these
Your
good
drinking
things.
program?
Yeah, right. My drinking program, the recovery program that I was in, the 12-step program I was in.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So you were, yeah, okay. So you were in a 12-step program for drugs,
for
like still
drugs.
drugs, but you were still drinking.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I was like, oh, I can still drink, right? And so I'm like making up my own rules, and you know, they give you all these suggestions, right, when you go in. And I was like, yeah, well, there's suggestions. I don't need to do this. I'm going to create my own program. I'm going to write it myself and
Right.
take what I want and do that. And that's kind of what I did for the first 3 months. And then I remember being in a lot of pain, and I was listening to someone share one day in a meeting, and he was like, you know, recovery is really easy. It's like baking a German chocolate cake. You just flip the fucking box over and read the damn directions and just follow them. And I was like, oh my God, the suggestions are really directions. And it just like all landed. And I was
Well,
like,
okay. I got that same analogy, but it's totally different. It's still a cake, but there's ingredients. AA is, or the 12 steps are like ingredients of a cake. You can not follow it and put 3 cups of sugar and 5 eggs and water and all of this stuff in it and create your own recipe. You're going to get something. You're just not going to get what they're promising.
a delightful cake, right?
Right? So you're going to get something. So follow the directions. There's just suggestions.
Yeah, and so that was the point where I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to give it 90 days. And after that, if nothing changes, then F this, I'm out. But I'll give it a fair shot. And so after 90 days, I was like, wow, I felt better. So I was like, okay, I'll keep going with this because they're onto something here. And I just kept following the directions. And now it's like, almost 8 years later, where I'm just like, wow, this is, yeah, I got to change I'm so grateful,
Yeah,
so
it was
grateful.
a total foundation for me. It was definitely like a foundation to get me where I'm at now. I do a lot of other things and a lot of other spiritual practices now, that I just kind of add to it that have a lot of the same principles and things. But yeah, it was a total foundational, like I just had to break it all down, like break all of Leanna and who this person is down and just kind of start from scratch, which meant I moved from Maui to Montana. There's no ocean. There's no ocean. They did tell me there's kite surfing on the lake. And I'm like, it's like 30 degrees. No, thank you.
Oh my God.
Oh, but I've fallen in love with it here. It's super healing. Yeah, and then I got divorced and was
Mhm.
raising two like tweens, right? These two teenagers. But it's like stripping it all away. And then like when I started changing my behaviors and I had a lot of rage, so I'd normally get really angry. And like when I stopped responding like that, reacting like that, my kids were like always on edge, and I'm like, no, it's okay. I understand why you would react or you would respond, like think I'm going to react, but no, like, so we all kind of healed at the same time, which is another thing that I like to speak on is like
Mhm.
once my family, so this is the other thing with stigma and addiction is that like for me, I had come to Montana actually to visit for New Year's. That was my come to Jesus moment. And so our whole family had come to Montana. My parents had just moved here and it was New Year's. So we were all drinking and a huge fight broke out. And then when we all calmed down, they were like, Leanna, what do you need? And I was like, I need a good treatment. And it was the first time that they heard that and sat with me in it and said, okay,
Wow.
whatever we'll do this with you. Instead, in the past, how many times did they come to me and say, you need to stop drinking. You just need to stop drinking. You just need to stop drinking. You just need to get your life in order. You just need to get yourself on a schedule. You just need to stop. Like
Hmm.
how many times? And that's again, the shame. Yeah, I know I just need to stop. I pray every single night that I'll stop. Like I do
Yeah.
not want to, I cannot stop. Like, I can't
Yeah.
stop.
I remember saying that, like, stop. Like, how the fuck do you stop? I don't know what that means. What does that look like? Because if I knew, I'd fucking do it.
Yeah. And so then I'm just in more shame, right? Like, all I got was, and I just recently met a man, and we have this man I was kind of talking about earlier who really, um, I would hope will go to detox soon. And, and they're like, oh, he just needs to stop. And I'm like, you can't say that to someone who's in
Yeah.
addiction. Like, you
Yeah, they
really
don't
can't.
understand. Right.
What you do is you put out your hand and you say, what do you need? Like, let's go. What do you need? Like, a lot of
Hmm.
the time, we're both coaches here. They have the solution, right? Like, but
Yep.
sometimes it's like, I don't know what I need, right? And
Right.
so we get to sit there with them and we get to hold that space with them.
Hmm.
And like, treatment, a meeting, accountability every day. It is such a, it's that stigma on the other side too, like with the family when they're, or friends or family members, right? Like, oh, so and so's got drinks too much, they just need to stop. A lot of the time addictions kicked in, and again,
Hmm.
that's that dopamine response that's happening. Those dopamine receptors are so high that and alcohol isn't one of those that you can just stop.
Right.
Alcohol, like, if you want to stop drinking, it either needs to be in moderation or you go to the hospital because
Yeah.
you can die from an alcohol detox.
Yeah.
But those receptors are so high, it's like you need straight up, like, daily minute to minute accountability, right?
Hmm.
Like, what did you do when you went into, those meetings, when you actually like took it seriously and you were all in? Did you get a sponsor right away?
I got a sponsor that day, and I picked somebody that scared the shit out of me. That when I listened to her share, I was like, whoa, like this lady's been through some shit. And she was from Baltimore, and she like lived on the streets. Like she like was really and then she had totally changed her life around and was a nurse and owned a couple recovery houses. And I was like, whoa, like to hear like what she's gone through and where she is today. I was like, that's what I want. And yeah, and I needed someone that was going to call me on my shit, and that I would, and I don't want to say that I was afraid of, but that I would think twice about, and I wouldn't lie to.
Right. Yeah. Like, and is it afraid? Because I hear that so many times. Like, I picked someone that I was afraid of or whatever, but they had something that you wanted.
Yep.
And it was almost like they had something in a form of respect and integrity.
Yes.
Because you were afraid to disappoint them. Like, that's what the fear, right? Right. Like, you
Yep.
were afraid because you knew they were going to hold you accountable because they were in integrity. And they had this power of respect that you wanted
Yes.
to honor that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. But it's like having that accountability, right? Like, so when you're first either wanting to get sober or thinking about it, the first rule is try to moderate, just try to stop. And if you really truly find that you can't, you might need to get an accountability partner. You might, and that's
Yeah.
really, A is great for that. NA is great for that. Like I said, there's so many programs out there on Instagram world and social media worlds and groups. On Facebook, you can find that you can find some people to help hold you accountable.
Yeah.
But I think that support is really important.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and I
So,
love it. There's so many options for different people wherever they're at.
uh-huh. Yeah. And if they just aren't sure yet, they can still, like I said, just moderate then, right? But what's happening is that you want to, and moderation is good for anything. Like, if you are a binge drinker, like maybe you just drink on the weekends, but it's a bender all weekend long. Maybe you don't drink very much at all. Like, maybe you go months without drinking, but then it's like game on and you go on this crazy bender. Maybe you're a daily drinker. Maybe you're not even that. Maybe it's just like social events. But your
Hmm.
question, right? Like, like, if you might have a problem or it's getting a little out of control, it's like, just moderate, just slow it down. Because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to settle your neurotransmitters in that dopamine response. You want to settle that so that it can balance itself out. And you can only do that if you are off the substances for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Yeah, and what I love is that there's so many different forms of support that are out there. It's not strictly like a 12-step program. There's so many different programs. And I have so many friends that are coaches that have like developed their own program as well. Because I know some people have like a stigma about going to a 12-step program. We're talking about stigma today. It's like, oh my God, there's stigma for everything.
Yeah, totally.
And I can only share like, hey, this is what worked for me. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. But go find
Yeah,
something that will.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it's available to you.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And again, yeah, there's so many different options out there. And I think that was the biggest thing is, when they say you just need to stop, or if you're saying you just need to stop to someone else, it's like, well, look at what that person probably needs a little bit more support than just a demand or whatever you want to call that, a suggestion. Hey, I suggest you stop. But if it's really becoming a problem where it's really there's negative consequences in that person's life, you can't help a person if they're not willing to help themselves. But constantly showing up in a place of compassion and open and say, hey, when you're ready, I am here.
Yeah.
And and really, and if you care enough about the person, then you can kind of do your own research, right? Like find some groups, find some places. There's Al-Anon out there, and there's other support groups for people who have family members or friends in addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So share before we go, like share a little bit about what you are doing now, what your coaching focuses on at the moment. Because I know you've like shifted and changed around a lot.
yeah, so I am, yeah, I just launched a new coaching program. I'm so excited. So it's really it's supporting individuals and harnessing their energy and their time to be more productive and effective in their lives. And that could be in so many different ways. If it's in your career, if it's in your relationships and family, if it's in self-care routines. I'm
Hmm.
huge on building routines and healthy habits in your life and those coping skills because they saved my life. And so I specialize in mindfulness meditation. And so really applying a lot of mindfulness and then, yeah, setting up like it's daily accountability. So I'm so excited about it. It's totally new. I'm really excited about that. And then I'm a speaker. So I smash the stigma on mental health and substance abuse. So I'll be focusing on going into universities and speaking to student athletes. But if anybody feels like this topic would be something their community, I work with community leaders as well and families in their local area that would like a topic like this to kind of bust it out of the water and really start having those conversations and what that looks like in your community, because I'm a prevention specialist. And so looking at how we develop these healthy communities, healthy habits, like healthy
Hmm.
support for individuals when there is a need for treatment, but really how do we keep our kids from actually going down that path in the first place?
Mm,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So find me on, I'm on Instagram here at Leanna_Troche. You can follow me there. And then my website, leannatroche.com. You can follow me on there as well. And I love
Awesome.
it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for getting with me tonight. I'm so appreciative of it. You
I'm
taking the
so glad
time.
we finally did this.
I know we keep talking about it forever. And then my friend Danielle just popped in here and I'm finally getting with her in September. We've been talking about it for like 6 months. We're finally getting together in September. So I'm so excited about that too.
Yeah. Awesome. I
But
love you, Carrie. You're
I
amazing.
love you too, Leanna, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.